keep an eye on that. Does it show you how many people are watching?
It will at the end.
Oh, doesn't during? We don't know.
Well, if it does, I guess I just haven't looked. It might.
What do you think?
I usually have one of those runs. Oh.
You may want to take a seat. It's probably, we do have a fair bit on the agenda. There's chairs there. You can move a seat over too if you want. Tell me more about it. Yeah. Okay, if everybody's ready. Call to order the regular council meeting for February 28th, 2023. I guess in my opening remarks, which I have a few. So on the weekend, myself, Councillor Bradbury, Councillor Brown, and along with Minister Hogan attended a dessert auction fundraiser at the Lindsay Baptist Church in Ward 2 this past Saturday night. And it was hosted by the newly formed Lindsay Community Recreation Council in support of their efforts to reopen and revitalize their Lindsay Community Hall. So overall, those of us that attended, it was a pretty well attended event, and I think we all largely came home with one dessert or another. And they had a great turnout, so it was kind of nice to see the community out supporting that. Also, myself, the CAO, and a few councillors met a couple of weeks ago with Emily Shapiro. And Emily is a community developer with Horizon Health Network and the lead in Woodstock for the Planet Youth Project. And if everyone recalls, back in the fall, the province announced that there were 4 communities in New Brunswick selected to participate in this pilot project, and Woodstock was one of them. So it is a 5-year pilot project that is aimed at youth health and well-being through healthy communities and finding community-based solutions to substance use among youth. So it is based on an Icelandic prevention model that has proven effective in reducing substance abuse. So Emily met with us to explain kind of what stage they are at and asked if someone from the council would participate on their committee. So I agreed, based on the timing of their meetings, to be the representative for council on the committee to start. And as the project, I think, goes through different stages, we will revisit whether that I continue or whether there might be a council member or a staff member that might better represent us at some point. The project, I would say, based on what I know, the conversations and the couple meetings that I've attended, is currently in data collection stage and a combination of other stages because they're trying to launch this program and a lot's happening all at once. So the grade 10 students at the Woodstock High School all participated in a very lengthy 40-page multiple choice survey a couple weeks ago, and that is currently now with the Icelandic research team, and they will essentially analyze that and return that back to the action team that's here. So they expect that that will be probably late April, and the expectation of what they will submit back to us is identifying gaps in our community that would potentially influence youth to use substances. So then what happens from there is the action team will spend time trying to identify how we might be able to address some of the issues in our community. And that's either largely through strengthening and bolstering programs that we already have in existence, as well as looking at larger social justice and critical health resources that may be lacking in our area that we need to look at from, either a municipal or provincial or even federal government support to launch some new initiatives. So that's what I have to say about that overall, but it is it's important for everybody to understand that project is up and going, and that if it works, it could be extremely beneficial to our community and our youth. So we will keep you informed on the progress of that. But I think with the hopes that with the people on their team, they're hoping to get the word out at a larger degree of what the project means. And so we'll hope to maybe see a little bit in the press on that too over the coming weeks. But other than that, I have two other little points. The Western Valley Regional Service Commission has recently launched the Urban Rural Ride Share program in our region. So I don't know if everybody saw the press release that went out on that, and there has been a bit of social media around it. But we, at our last RSC meeting this past week, kind of agreed that, or I certainly offered to speak to it in my opening remarks. And so if you have not heard about this program yet, the RSC, as part of what would be under the transportation mandate for the Regional Service Commission, partnered with an established charity called Urban Rural Rides. And they are operating in other regions, probably larger regions like Fredericton in the province today. And they've been operating for years. So it offers safe, affordable, and reliable transportation to and from medical appointments. So it's targeted at ride fees that are based on the distance traveled, and the fees are often subsidized. They will agree to subsidize rates for low-income people and families. The drivers all basically work on a volunteer basis, so they are actively recruiting new drivers and volunteers, but those drivers will be paid compensation for their mileage and to help cover their fuel and any maintenance costs on their vehicles. So in other areas of the province where this has been active, it has grown over time to add additional services such as rides to shopping, recreation, other appointments that might not be necessarily medically related. So obviously, to start here in this region, they are focused on medical appointments only until it's well established and making sure it's working and that they have enough driver support. So I will say clients can register by calling 1-506-503-3004. And you can also go online and look at urbanruralrides.ca. There's a registration form you can download and fill out on it and email it into them. So again, they are actively looking for volunteer drivers throughout the region, especially I would say in the Lakeland region area and in our area too. So it covers the whole area all the way through to Perth. So the more drivers they have, the better, and drivers aren't required day to day to necessarily commit a certain amount of hours. They'll take, if you can, I think you're at minimum, you have to commit 4 hours a month or something. So the commitment's minimal, but the return to help people get to their appointments that may not otherwise be able to or be able to afford to is kind of the return. And there was an information flyer that was dropped off here, so that is available for anybody that wants to come into the town hall and pick that up. Also, the Regional Service Commission, under their community development mandate, if it returns, get help with that. They can get help applying for even a social insurance card for either themselves or family members. And they can get information on new programs that are out there and benefits and credits. So again, if you know somebody that may benefit from that, certainly share that. There are other clinics being offered around the province as well. So there's a flyer that was dropped off here about that too, and information online as well. So that concludes my opening remarks, other than I will say, just because we have a larger than normal audience tonight. So We do have quite a few items on the agenda, and just for those that have never come into a council meeting before, just so that you're aware that you would have had to have contacted our clerk, Laura, well in advance if you were looking to speak at a town council meeting. So this is not, our regular council meetings aren't a forum for general public to speak. So just make sure everybody's aware of that for procedure tonight. So if that's my opening remarks, and I guess I will look, Laura, we're at approval of agenda. Do you have anything you want to adjust?
Yes, I'd like to make the amendment to add an additional item number 4, declaration of conflict of interest.
Yes, we usually have the declaration as a standard on our agenda now and just omitted tonight. So could I get a motion from someone to amend the agenda to add item 4, declaration of conflict of interest? Do I have someone second that? Councilor Bradbury. Any questions on the question? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. And anybody opposed, nay? Motion carried. So we will move on to the first item, which is approval of the minutes of regular council meeting of February 14th. So do I have a motion of, does anybody have any questions on that again?
Are you asking if anybody has
Questions on them?
Conflict.
Oh, yes, right. We got to squeeze that in there now. Get out the list here. Yeah. Would anybody like to declare a conflict of
I
interest?
think I would, so I will. I'm in favor of what they're asking, but I think I would because I didn't send the business. Is that right?
Which one?
The rezoning request?
9.1.
No, you're fine for that. It's gonna be a recommendation to send it to council instead of public hearing.
No decision tonight yet,
No decision.
basically. Okay. Okay, so approval of the minutes, the set of minutes from the February 14th regular council. Okay, we have Councilor Brown, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rogers. All ready for the question. Everybody in favor, signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. So the next order of business is approval of the minutes of the council and committee meeting from February 14th, which was a long one. Might have been our longest in history, I think. So do I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the council and committee? So moved by, seconded by, get that one to Councilor Leach. Everybody ready for the question? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. So I guess under business arising from the minutes, CAO, did we have any business arising?
There is one item under the council and committee minutes. We'll need a motion to accept the 2022 annual report submitted by Chief Board.
Okay. Just going to give 1 minute for Laura to, you got that written down?
Yep,
Okay.
good.
Could I get a motion to accept Chief Forward's annual report? Motion by Councilor Williams, seconded by Councilor Bradbury. Okay.
Great.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Was that the only piece from
It was.
the minutes? Okay. So moving on to item CAOs, or item 7 CAO update. I'll hand it over to you, CAO.
Mayor Jones. A couple items just to mention tonight. One of the things I like to do is update council for the previous members and definitely to the benefit of the new members of different programs or funding streams that we have. So just want to mention tonight in regards to the designated highway program. So this year will mark year 2 of 3 for the current designated highway program. As a reminder, the designated highway program is a program between the town of Woodstock and the province of New Brunswick. And our designated highways, Woodstock are Main Street, Conway Street, and Holton Street. In the past, they've generally been a 5-year plan, which was submitted to the province annually for approval. So even though it's a 5-year plan, only the current year would technically apply as far as funding. So the second year of that plan, we would resubmit it with a new year at the end. So we know it's a 5-year program. It was constantly scrolling, I guess, if you will. So, but 2022 was the first year that it was a 3-year plan. I think it was done because of reform. They were trying just to nail down 3-year plans so that municipalities knew what they were going to get or not get. So last year was the first year of the three-year plan. Excuse me. Last year, you may recall, work was done on Holton Street. There's about 325 meters worth of curb and gutter, sidewalk, and storm sewer improvements or upgrades. This year, which will be the second year for it, will be that area where the work was completed will be milled and paved. So that'll basically finish that section that was done. Year 3, actually, we get nothing. So that's a
That's disappointing.
which is very disappointing. We did luck out compared to other municipalities. I know one up the river a little bit further that I believe that zeros. They might have all 3 years, maybe zeros, definitely 2 years. So a little bit ahead. But just keep in mind that our 3-year plan currently was what we had asked for in year 1. So
Way behind.
it's put us behind for sure. So did get a little encouragement at a meeting I was at, though, to perhaps submit another one or submit more. I don't know if it's just a comment, fingers crossed or not, but I guess it doesn't hurt to do it. So I know we're going to talk about our strategic plan here very soon with capital purchase. Good news is with that, this will come from that conversation. This is from a separate funding stream. It's the Canada Community Building Fund, which some of us knew it as the gas tax fund, but it's now the Canada Community Building Fund. And the previous council had agreed that this year and last year that the designated highway program will be funded from that. So the money that we'll have to come up with for our portion of paving that will come from that fund. As I said, I like to kind of start talking about these items in council. It's good for us and good for the public. I will get more in depth with the Canada Community Building Fund at the next meeting. We are currently working with 2 of these packages, if you will, or agreements. The current one, and we haven't even spent the money on the last one yet, which is what we're trying to wrap up with this year's program. Hopefully it'll finish it up. So we do have money there for other things that we'll look into at the next one. Any questions on that? It's kind of a 2-minute quick explanation, but we'll definitely get into more of that at our strategic session. So,
No questions.
if not, the other one, as I did 2 weeks ago, update on the fire truck. So we get our weekly updates, and it's getting that much closer. Last time I mentioned that the UL testing was going to be happening very soon. It has happened, and it passed everything flying colors. So we were happy with that. This Thursday evening, myself and the chief and probably a few of the other volunteers are going out to Metal Fab to do a final inspection on the truck. Once that's done, they are expected to deliver it probably on March 11th. It's going to be Saturday. So it'll be the 11th or the 18th. So I'm pretty certain it passes everything, which looks like it has. We'll probably want to hear sooner than later. So I'm guessing on the 11th, it will show up at the hall.
Wow.
that's what I have.
It's a big deal to get a fire truck delivered. It takes about 2 years
Yeah,
to
it,
build and to manufacture and get here.
that
So,
was
yeah.
one of the struggles was, by the time it was first discussed, creating the tender document for it, just the increase in cost.
Mhm.
Because it was just at the start where we really started seeing prices soar. I forget what the increase was when we first said, oh, we should start looking into this to when it was actually tendered. It's probably close to $50,000 to $100,000 difference, so it does add up pretty quick. So, but anyway, it's going to replace a 20-year-old plus truck, so I'm the fire department crew. I've been excited to see it land. What's the questions on that?
Did you mention, Andrew, that the older truck would be kept, just like for extras or something, or would that be?
In the
sold?
past, I recall some we've sold, some we have kept. Years ago, the volunteers used to wash parking lots as a fundraiser. That doesn't happen anymore now that they have the lotto. It does well for them. So even that one, at that point, we have since sold that. So we don't have a place for it. So even when it comes, unless we find a place to store it, we'll have to.
Public Works be able to repurpose it?
It could. I'm not sure. We're on top grade, so what he would want. We'll probably look into see what we can get out of it. If we get some money for it, it might help with other projects. So I have no idea what it would cost, but I do know companies do buy them to refurbish them. So it's I can't speak about it in Brunswick or Maritimes, but I do know even down state they have repurposed trucks before. So it's
Great. You finished? All good? Okay, moving on to item number 8, correspondence. Laura, do we have any? We do not have any tonight.
We do not have any
Okay.
tonight.
Yeah. Moving along. Maybe it won't be too long tonight, but so going into new business, we'll go into item 9.1, zoning request, CAO. Do you want to take that one?
Scroll down.
Yeah.
The first item for this evening, council's role at this point, we received an application to have a property rezoned. And
15 is fine. You're looking for it.
so we have an application from Sheila and Mark Milbury to rezone a property for storage units. Actually, they had started this application with the RSC, and just time of year when they did it. There is a building currently there under agricultural, which is what it's zoning is now for it. They gave him a permit to start to build the building as an agricultural use, which he has, but he wants to turn it into a storage unit. So under the zoning, it doesn't meet it's not proper use, so it's going to have to be rezoned in order to get it. So he's filled out the paperwork to have it rezoned. So for this evening, it's be up for the council to make a motion to send it to PAC to start the rezoning process and to set a public hearing date as well.
Yeah.
And that public hearing date would be March 28th.
When you're ready, Laura.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Will
so,
somebody move that?
yeah, if I could have somebody make a motion to agree to send this application to PAC for review,
I'll make the motion. Yep.
and seconded by Councilor Bradbury. Do we want to include the date on that motion or a separate motion? Yeah, so included in that motion, I guess, Councilor Bellier, you're also making a motion to set the public hearing date to March 28th. Record? Okay, so everybody ready for the question? Yep.
At 7 p.m.
7 p.m. On the nose.
When we do CIC at 6, and then we'll find, because this will happen
Yes.
at one point. We'll start at 6, and if we're done, we can start council, but wherever we are at, we have to stop and go to the public hearing at 7. That is, we set a date and time for that, that has to stay at that.
Duly noted. Any questions? Everybody ready? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, and that's it for the zoning request, correct?
Yes.
So we'll move on to item 9.2, the tender for the pavers. You can take that as well.
I can do this one as
Yep.
well. This is in regards to the town square project, so, actually, as a bit of a side note, had a good conversation today with, Jim Trace, and Eric Dubé from RDC, on the project, is kind of doing an update, that we awarded the benches, tonight the pavers come, just to ensure that we're good with everything, because the funding is supposed to have a deadline of the end of March. But we gave them a lot of notice, and they're able to work it so that we're fine. So that being said, even though it's early, I'll say into it, as far as dollar wise, we still are after a tad under budget, which is good, because you never know.
Yep.
We don't get to say that very much lately as far as tenders with the price of things. So for tonight, it's the paving units and the polymetric sand. So, dear Mr. Garnett, a careful review of the submissions received in response to tender 2023-01.1, supplying and delivery of precast concrete paving units, polymetric sand. We are pleased to recommend awarding this contract to the lowest bidder, House of Stone Limited. The House of Stone Limited tender price is $50,208.80 plus $7,531.32 HST, for a total tender price of $57,740.12. Please note that we also received a quote of $53,865 plus a little $8,000 HST, for a total tender price of just under $62,000 from Shaw Group Limited. If you have any questions, please reach out. So the below is from the House of Stone Limited for a tender price of $50,208.80 plus $7,531.32 HST, for a total tender price of $57,740.12.
Okay. So do I have, could I get a motion, I guess, to award the paver tender to House of Stone Limited in the amount of $50,208.80 plus HST, as recommended by Laura Getz? A motion from Councillor McCartney, seconded by Councillor Bradbury. Is anybody, question on that?
Short question, do we have, Andrew, again, one usual question, do we have a start date on this all, or?
It's going to be the remain, so there's one more tender to happen, and it's going to happen fairly quickly.
Okay.
The goal would be to get on the square as soon as we can.
Yeah.
We're
As
hoping
soon
that,
as weather permits?
yeah. It'll look like, it could be in May. Could be in May. It just depends on, like, the benches are, I think, pretty straightforward. Even the brick is pretty straightforward coming. The one that I would wonder, and I don't know this, I'm just thinking this, the lights could be a little bit, they're not a on the shelf thing. Perhaps that, there's trees. So that should be fairly quick. So with Jim today, we had asked that question, and he was hoping.
Anyone else have any other questions? Everybody ready? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, so that allows us to move, we're good to move on? So moving on to item number 9.3, Family Day 2024. So we put this on the agenda this week basically because we had a lot of community members reach out to a number of different counselors, and there was some feedback provided that there was some disappointment in the lack of programming, events, or facilities that were open on Family Day. So I guess this gives us an opportunity as a council tonight to discuss, and we'll open the floor for anyone to share any thoughts that they may have. I know a lot of you did receive feedback from the public on this, and I think in general we can look at it from a viewpoint tonight that we could walk away from this conversation with a recommendation to council, potentially to look at maybe what could be done in 2024. So I guess I'd open the floor to anyone that would like to make a comment on their thoughts on what we would like to see as a council happen on Family Day here. If we desire as a group to see if the facility or facilities remain open at least for the day or part of the day. So anyone want to, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Brown.
So I got phone calls. I talked to people about Family Day 2023 and other years that the Air Motor Center was closed. And we felt that for Family Day, the recreation department should have the Air Motor Center open for on the swim, on the skates, and even for minor hockey, because I know a lot of our teams traveled out of the town for hockey. That facility is for the people in our municipality. And the recreation department, I think that building should be open on Family Day.
Okay.
And I've heard that from more than a few people.
Anyone else like to make a comment or?
I think I would share and I'd echo Councilor Brown's opinion. I too had people reach out to me as well. There were numerous teams that were out of town on that Monday. There was an opportunity there for maybe teams from outside the area that could have come in, brought economic benefits to the area, restaurants and whatnot, if they would have been open, but also to go spend family time, whether that's public skating or swimming, field house activities. Again, I get it's two sides of the coin. Yeah, you want your employees that work there to have to spend some time with their families as well, and I get that side of it. So I'd recommend maybe looking at something like at least half of the day. By noon time, we should probably be looking at trying to have some type of an event for family oriented, or an option for minor hockey to post games or whatever the option is. So that's what I think. So there.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
No, I'll just support my two colleagues in council there. They've said that they're absolutely right what they're saying, something that we should have looked into.
For those that haven't said anything, are we in agreement that we could potentially at least make a recommendation to have over the next few months for staff to look into, because as we all know, leaving it open, obviously that's a cost, and because it's a holiday, it's an extra cost. So what does that look like for us? What does that look like for cost? Could we look at a volunteer group coming in to participate? People like me that don't really have little kids, but sit home on Family Day because there's not necessarily a lot for me to do, could volunteer. So do we have a census with our group that we could make a recommendation, at least to staff, to review it and report back to us by, obviously we need it for budgeting season, but at some point here in the coming months that they can look at what the cost would be, and obviously the finance administrator can look at that. And as far as staffing from even at least the Air Motor Center, they can look at what would that mean and what could they do with the staff that they have, and give us their thoughts, pros, cons for keeping it open. And then at least we have our eyes open in trying to make a formal recommendation. Yes, Councilor Bradford?
It's a good study to do and good model to look at, or even maybe other holidays too.
certainly, yeah.
I'm going, 365 days of the week, but maybe some other times throughout the year that it's, closed. If we could keep it open, minimal time there, so I think that'd be a good idea. It'd be a good model to look at anyways. And maybe we could apply to other situations too.
Sure.
Or maybe if we could talk to Kelly and Julie, see if they have any thoughts of maybe incorporating like a winter carnival.
Mhm.
Into that family day weekend.
Yeah.
Just have one up in Perth.
Yes.
And we would have a lot of different venues
Mhm.
and things set up for families. It wasn't in conjunction with family day, but something we could talk to them about, see if there's one
Yep.
spirit or something like that, other organizations like jump on board.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, kind of what you already said, but I guess if Jill and then made their recommendation of what's the minimum amount of staff that they can have working, and then maybe we ask somebody like Rotaract or somebody that, maybe every year we look for a different group that can do it. But we
To
we have to
volunteer.
come up with a volunteer group of how many would we need, 15, 5 by pool, 5 by here, 5 by here. We have to put lifeguards, obviously, but, just have extra help out.
Okay, so I don't think we need a motion on that, correct? We can just, so the CAO will speak to staff, and hearing Laura, you understood or got enough of our wording to
Yes.
help craft what that recommendation looks like to council. I think it's important that we have conversations like this, and when we hear from public that, I realize Family Day is, let's say, a relatively new holiday in the mix, right? It hasn't been around for decades. It's been around for a few years. And, but I think calling it Family Day, people are expecting to be able to go out and do things. So if we can make that happen and it's feasible to do so, I think it would be good for the community. So I'm in support of seeking this information as well.
Okay, everything to Trina, maybe Councilor Bradbury, his, their volunteer friends at the fire department, but I know you guys host a couple of sliding days. Maybe that could be one of the days that you host a sliding event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One more thing it was, instead of having a night.
Yeah.
And those that are involved with the Solar Federation, maybe I can keep one of on that way.
Right? Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities, and I think there's opportunity once everybody's aware of what the town is maybe doing for other groups to potentially piggyback off that and do their own events. So, yeah. Excellent. Are we good to everybody? You're good with that, CAO? Okay. So we are moving on to item 9.4, the manganese mine discussion. So I have a few pages of notes. What I want to first start off by saying is that tonight's conversation will be, I'd say, fairly brief overall, but in looking at the amount of notes I have, it's probably still about a 10-minute spiel. But it will be just mainly me talking in our open council regular meeting tonight. So I wanted to take the opportunity to help clarify what this council knows so far, and to try and clear up any confusion that may be out there around that. So for the record, this current council has not had any information provided directly to us to date, and we have not had any presentations by representatives from either of the two mining companies that are doing exploration work in our areas. So to date, we do not have any more information about the projects than what is technically out there in the public domain. So, however, on that note, tonight will be the first conversation that council will have with a representative from one of the companies. So David Allward, who is the vice president for the New Brunswick Mining Explorations for Canadian Manganese Company, will give council a presentation in our committee of the whole session tonight. And the point of me speaking is to hopefully for you guys to understand that we do want transparency here. But though we want to be as open and transparent to the community about what we know, this does fall under land and potentially legal. So as such, we wanted council to be able to ask specific questions that may be privy at this time. So hence, that conversation will be what we call in camera, even though it's a closed door session. So that discussion will happen tonight at the close of this meeting. So I also want to clarify that I do not want to put this council, so for all of councilors sitting around this table, in a role as a conduit for information to the community for the mining companies. I do feel strongly that it is the job of the mining companies to communicate with and to update the general public and stakeholders. So as for their requirements to notify the general public and community about the status of their projects, I do not believe either company has hit a stage where large public consultation is yet required, but that is to be determined, and we are looking into that. So also up until January 1st, both exploration sites, as everybody's probably well aware, fell outside our old town of Woodstock limits, and previous to now, there would have been no mandate for them to have to communicate with council nor seek permission from the town. So again, we will seek to understand whether any exploration activity that they're doing right now meets the threshold that may require permission from the municipality, or further steps at least to be taken by those companies. So I would say mining in New Brunswick, important to note, is governed at the provincial level, which many of you probably know, and must comply with the Mining Act for the province. A mining lease is required for any mining operation, which is also issued by the province. So neither company that's doing exploration is currently operating a mine yet, as there are stages that each company will have to go through. So most importantly, an environmental impact assessment. So the EIA requires public consultation and consultation with First Nations as part of the process. So both companies are doing exploration work, which does allow for what a lot of people are seeing right now, drilling and core sampling. Among other activities, there are a lot of things that they give them leeway to do without officially licensing them to mine a metal. So each company will work through what they call different stages of feasibility studies to determine for themselves whether they deem the project to be even financially viable. So as we've seen in the past, companies can invest years and a lot of money simply on exploration alone. So, and they could determine, as they have in the past, that the project is not feasible. So as a note, we will also be making contact with a representative from Manganese X Corporation, which is the second company we know to be in exploration mode today, to see if they're willing to also come in and have and give a presentation to council as well. Again, as I stated with this meeting tonight, it will likely be in a committee of the whole setting because it covers land and it allows us to ask some very specific questions that they may not be able to answer to general public yet, but would provide detail to us. As many of you may know, and the councilors around the table, I like to do my homework. So I have been provided contact information for a number of geologists in the province, and I've reached out to a couple of them already. One in particular that has familiarity with Manganese X Corp and their process to basically gain better insight overall. Again, this is so that I can gain information to be able to have better conversations with those representatives. And I will ensure that council and staff will also have that same opportunity to learn more if they so choose. And in knowing how as important as this topic is, I'm sure everyone will take those opportunities when they arise. I will reiterate, we are not mining experts, nor are we going to pretend to be or try to become mining experts. As such, I'm going to repeat, and it's important to hear this, we do not want to put ourselves into the position that we are the conduit for information for the mining companies. but we will encourage and can encourage them to engage with you all and with general public throughout their explorations. And we can also advocate for proper engagement when we know it's determined that public consultation is required. So we will be following everything closely. And on that note, I would suggest, and for those that are listening and those that are here, to be mindful of where you get your information and how you interpret it. I would suggest you defer to information on the status of these specific projects directly from the mining companies or their websites. I've done a lot of reading about this over the years, and it is a complicated subject matter, and it's really easy to misinterpret information, in particular around mining exploration. It can look a lot like mining activity. So, and I would even say a lot of their company press releases that they put out generally contain a lot of forward-looking statements, and they outline what they hope may be the end result. But when people read it, it looks like that's what's happening and that's what they're stating is going to happen. But in reality and in truth and in what we've seen in history so far of the explorations that have happened, it doesn't necessarily mean it will happen. So I would caution everybody to be mindful of where you get your information. Also, as most everyone is aware, the metal both companies are seeking to mine is manganese. And I understand today that there are no active manganese mines in all of North America. And I would say there is a very high demand for this mineral or metal for batteries and steel. And there has long been a great interest in manganese deposits in our province and in particular Woodstock. So this is not the first time exploration and drilling has taken place here. And I would say it dates back to initial exploration back to the 50s and 60s from what I understand. And there has been drilling for exploration similar to what we're seeing today, maybe not quite as extensive, I will note, back in the 80s and also 10 to 12 years ago. There was a substantial amount done. So given the fact that there is basically no manganese reserves in the United States, with maybe the exception of Maine, who is highly anti-mining and do not currently allow, United States is a no-go. There are no deposits or reserves that exist. So as you can imagine, we are very highly sought after right now, because with supply chain issues and China being the single largest producer of manganese in the world, that creates a lot of deep interest around here because we have one of the richest deposits for sure. So I would say manganese, from all of the history we know about manganese, it's found naturally in our environment. It exists in our water, in rocks, soil, food, and air, but it rarely exists, especially in North America, in a high enough concentration that the deposits are easily extracted as ore that you can do anything with that would be cost effective. So feasibility stages, I will say, of exploration are aiming to determine how easy or impossible it is to extract and process manganese and whether it makes sense financially to do it. So our town water supply is treated for manganese to keep our water quality good. And so based on that, we obviously understand and know we already have measurable levels of manganese in our water supply today. So along with the feasibility study, as I already noted, will come and then that environmental impact assessment. So we will also be trying to understand what baseline information they may or may not be trying to collect as part of that study and what role the municipality may have in the EIA process. So I can appreciate the amount of interest that there is around the current exploration activity that's happening at multiple sites and concerns that people have about how any future mining operation may impact our community. We get it. I totally get it. So please understand that council has not taken any type of stance on this matter. We are, however, trying to educate ourselves and understand what role we have, if any, in this decision. We will continue to update everyone as we learn information that we feel is pertinent to the community from our perspective. And again, I'll repeat, I think probably what for the third time, that we will also continue to advocate that the mining companies do proper public engagement and encourage them to consider doing that now as an ongoing effort, not just simply at a time where they're required by law to do so. We can already tell and sense that there's a lot of concern and confusion as to what stage they're at. And we understand that and empathize with that. And as such, that's why we're talking about this tonight and seeking to find more information. So in closing, I will say, appreciate that many of you want to send myself and council emails regarding this topic and information you feel relevant. I've received lots of links and documents and what have you from many community members. Just please understand that we will likely not respond directly back to everyone that shares information with us, just so that we can ensure we are consistent with the message that we send out to general public that we collectively decide. So I will say, again, this topic is too important and too easy to misinterpret. So though we want to be as transparent as we possibly can, we want to manage expectations with all of you as to how and when and how much we will communicate. So at the end, I guess I'm asking for a little bit of trust from the community to understand that first and foremost, we are paying attention to this. I want you to know we were already kind of paying attention to it. We hear you loud and clear. And that we are actively seeking information, and we will share information when we can. So that's kind of my full spiel on this tonight. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware again that we will be having that first conversation. I will say, as far as this past council as a councillor, that we were not, that council, or at least the council members were also not given any direct information about the mining project. So this is relatively new to this entire group. So again, I can appreciate, and I will offer up the opportunity for any council members to ask me a question tonight or to make their own comments. Please understand, those that are listening, this is a highly sensitive topic, and if all of the council chooses to not say anything, I do not blame them. So I will throw that to you guys to decide if there's a specific thought or question that, or comment you want to make. I don't know how much all of you are receiving direct information yet. I'm sure you will. Floor is open for council.
Do we know, do we know when the feasibility studies are expected, the environmental stuff is expected, all those kind of things, and when they will be presented to the public? Is that something, that's when they're legally bound, is they have to present them, or?
They would have, there's let's move past the feasibility study phase to the application process for what is an EIA, which is extensive. And at that point, I will say to date, we do not know that, and they may not have an exact time frame depending on where they're at in their pre-feasibility stage. They need to convince a lot of people that this is a good idea. If that's where, if they've done their research and they deem it a good idea, there's still a lot of work to do. However, it's a potential that one or both of them does start that application process potentially this year or next year. The processes take a long time, and there's significant steps exact in that EIA process of when they must pull public in. And my understanding, but someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, is that there is an actual panel that participates as part of this process that helps with the public consultation, so that it's not just there. So I feel like there'll be somebody working with that we're not just relying on the companies to do this on good faith. There's a heavy process that's followed. But again, I think that's part of what we're trying to figure out. Is anybody ready? When do they think they're going to be ready to file that? What participation can we expect from the municipality to participate in that, or what information are we privy to? And just more clarity on the length of time that process may take. So not really giving you an answer because we don't know, but hopefully that will help give you a little bit more detail based on what I know today.
I think just knowing that they have to present the results of the EIA before they can move forward is important.
Yeah, there will be public consultation. There will be opportunity for everyone to voice their concerns, and trust that we are hearing it anyway. And we will certainly encourage them to look at public consultation now even. Anyone else have any? Yeah.
Just
Councilor
quickly, so just, first of all, it's nice to see the crowd out tonight. I know this is most of you probably are here for this discussion that we're having right now. So it's nice to see community engagement, and just to let people know that in my ward, I'm close to the Plymouth Road, and I live about 2 kilometers away. So I understand a lot of concerns and issues that this mining exploration, maybe the anxiety is the right word for it, just the uncertainties, the unknowns. And I know there's been a lot of people who probably have done their own research, but like all of us, I'm still learning about this. But I think it's good to be open and transparent, like you said, Mayor Jones. And just maybe if you could speak to just to help myself and maybe some people in the audience understand when they may get an opportunity to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I know you just touched on it, but maybe just clarify that a little more on when, whether that's with us or with the mining companies themselves. They're probably wondering, when will we have an opportunity to ask questions?
Yeah, and that's fair. When everybody wants to know, can it be tomorrow? How soon can it be? And I can appreciate that. I guess I would say further to my comments about we aren't going to be the conduit. Those conversations largely need to be had with the company representatives themselves. We may look to share information that we feel we can and that we find is important from our perspective, and sharing what involvement or activity we may be doing, communication that we may be having. But as far as pure facts and details about what they're mining, what their operations are, and exactly what stage they're at, I really truly feel like it needs to come from the source. And so I can't answer as to when, because we haven't actually talked to any of them yet. We will speak to one tonight. You could ask them that. But again, that's the whole point of us trying to start the engagement process with the 2 companies, and seeing what information and what they're willing to share at this point. And again, looking at, have they hit a stage where public consultation is required that may not have been required prior to January 1st. So there's some digging and homework that we have to do to understand what role we play. And so hopefully we'll, over time, have those answers. And as was said before, when we know, we certainly will share that.
Can we put their websites and contact information up on our website?
Yeah, we sure can.
A question probably for Andrew.
Yeah.
Is this something that they would have to look at zoning for? Or
Possibly,
it's gonna be-
I'm not sure yet. The EIA may dictate that. So, I don't know. It could be a rezoning, or it could be an incorporated area. So I don't know that yet. The EIA will trigger a lot of those, or answer a lot of those questions.
Could you check on that for us, or get back with on that to see how that works with mining operations
Yeah.
within the municipality?
Yeah.
I've had discussions with Jennifer Brown from Dillon, and she's has some questions, of course, herself on for that, so.
I will say on that note, we may be in first-time territory because technically every other mine that's ever operated is not started as part of the municipality. So this may be first-time territory, which is why we're asking people that should know, and they're like, oh, wait, how does that work now? So I think that's what we're trying to certainly ask the right people, the right questions, and figure out what does that mean now as of January 1st for us. And usually when there's a first, there's some new things that maybe weren't thought of before. So maybe an interesting.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have any other thoughts, questions?
I agree with what you're saying, Tree, and I'm not gonna say anything. The only thing, like I study some of these mining companies and stuff like that, I usually go to their website and sign up for a mailing list. And I'll start getting emails on a regular basis on where they are. They like to update, you know, like what they're doing, where they're going for shareholders and stuff like that. So that might be a good little, if anybody out there wants to
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Good idea.
That'd be a good idea, but I'll follow your lead, absolutely 100%.
Appreciate that. Anyone else? Okay, so I think that closes our discussion on that. I hope everybody wasn't largely expecting something bigger here tonight, but at least you know where we stand today. And so on that note, I will move to, I guess we just can set the date of our next meeting, which is currently set for March 21st. March 21st. So we're going to move into committee of the whole anyway, so I guess
we can do
we'll
a
wait.
motion.
So could I get a motion to move to committee of the whole? Seconded, Councilor Brown. And everybody ready for the question? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you all for coming out.